Distinguished young diplomats, respectable colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. If you look on the screen, you will see a photo, and this photo comes from a proverb that it is crooked wood that shows the best sculpture. What that means is that the challenges that the world is facing today, including Africa and the globe, are akin to crooked wood. What that means is they present opportunities, and these opportunities are opportunities that you must tap into. But for you to tap into that, you must arise and shine. And so this moment, building on what Her Excellency the Ambassador have said, we must arise and shine to ensure that we not only foster a peaceful society, but one where we can coexist as citizens of the global planet to be able to drive transformational change for people. Just imagine for a moment, as you see on the screen, 14.3 trillion US dollars. Just take just a moment and imagine how much money this is. 14.3 trillion US dollars. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this equates to about 2,000 US dollars for each of the 7 billion citizens on this global planet Earth. On the face of this planet today, this amount of money equals to 2,000 US dollars. And when you put this in Kenyan shilling, this is about $200,000. 200,000 Kenyan shillings for each of us seated here in this room, and the 7 billion citizens across the world. This absurd amount of money is what we as a global community lost in just 1 year for being less peaceful. That means that a world that is not peaceful is a world where resources are being wasted, and therefore peace is a necessity. It is a must. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we're still, as you can see on the screen, about half of most of the war-torn countries globally are from Africa. 15 years of the most intense conflicts in Africa alone has costed a shocking 284 billion US dollars. That's an estimated 18 billion US dollars a year. These figures are real. While socioeconomic inequality, as you can see in the infographics, while socioeconomic inequality, poverty, and environmental degradation, which already is costing the continent 68 billion US dollars every year, are already leading causes of conflict. One that is already redefining these contours of the continent, climate change, is threatening to exacerbate and already compound their scenario with a projected 70% shrinkage of continental gross domestic product. Distinguished young diplomats, taking all this into perspective and building on what Her Excellency the Ambassador has presented to us here today, and considering you as budding young diplomats in the African continent, but with resonance that will go beyond the African continent today, reminds me of one common saying, that in every adversity lies the seed of opportunity. Every adversity carries with it a seed of equal or greater benefit. And this seemingly turmoil represents an opportunity to build a new kind of diplomacy. In 2018, we need a new kind of diplomacy, one aimed at entrenching a paradigm of climate action as an accelerator of socio-economic transformation. If we do this, we will forestall the environmental degradation that is already costing the continent 68 billion US dollars every year. If we do this, we will forestall the poverty and economic inequalities that are actually the key drivers of conflict in the African continent today. And if we do this, we could achieve lasting peace, which is the essence of modern diplomacy today. Distinguished young diplomats, as we speak, and as I briefly informed you and highlighted in my remarks yesterday, you stand not just at the forefront of leveraging on what you already have, but you stand at a time when we have each and every opportunity to be able to drive transformational change in ways never seen before. You can be able to engineer and drive that new kind of diplomacy one where dialogue takes center stage, but at the same time also using that dialogue to address the challenges of poverty, the challenges of food insecurity, the challenges of inequality that is actually compounding and reversing some of the development gains that have been made in the past decade. Distinguished colleagues, it will not be easy, neither will it be a walk in the park. But always remember that he who fears the sun will not become chief. What this proverb tells us is that as young diplomats, you stand a real chance of having your names forever inscribed in the golden sands of Africa's history and of global history as well. You stand a chance of putting your name in the golden books by embarking on such significant tasks, regardless of how difficult this might be. I call you to take this challenge. I call you to use your skills and networks in diplomacy and forge a new brand of diplomacy for the world and for Africa, one where climate action in responding to the Paris Climate Change Agreement goes beyond the silos and the talk that we hear most of the time, but one that is used and become an accelerator of transformational climate change, capable of addressing social aspects, of addressing economic aspects, of addressing economic and financial returns, as well as also ensuring that the environment is intact. Yesterday, I shared with you the foundation in which this paradigm is founded on maximizing the productivity of Africa's catalytic sectors, which includes clean energy with 365 days of sunshine. It is just unacceptable that in 2018 we have 620 million citizens energy impoverished. Unacceptable in 2018. Clean energy and nature-based ecosystems enhancing agriculture does not only provide an opportunity, but gives us that peaceful space to be able to drive development in ways never ever seen before. That is driving development and utilizing your diplomatic skills, driving diplomacy with a singularity of purpose towards establishing what I call sustainable agriculture-led clean energy power agro-industrialization as the strategic trust for climate action. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this is an opportunity that calls for your skills. We call this diplomacy for climate action and accelerated socio-economic transformation. And as I said yesterday, in the context of Kenya, this needs to become the diplomacy for climate action and the Big Four. What we know is that empirical evidence right here in Kenya solidifies this direction, especially in ensuring that response to climate change translates to actualizing the Big Four. When you take the Ijara sub-county, processing enterprises, targeting the aloe plant, an indigenous drought-resistant crop, is not only restoring degraded land to ensure climate adaptation in line with Kenya's commitment to the Paris Climate Change Agreement, what we call the national determined contributions, but at the same time, is resulting in enterprises recording a net present value of over 4 million Kenyan shillings, equivalent to $40,000. This is a formidable step in decentralizing manufacturing to create enterprises at the ground level, to create enterprises at community level, and empower local communities to afford a better quality of life, to finance not just food security, but at the same time also ensure that health and housing, which are part of the Big Four, can be realized. This is the essence of diplomacy you could foster. Diplomacy in ensuring we move away from silos to drive complementarity and synergies, because that is the only way we can be able to forcefully and truly drive development for each and everyone. But for us to be able to do this, I want to leave you today with 4 propositions. Diplomacy for sustainable climate action and accelerated socio-economic transformation can only be realized when we foster a different paradigm shift. It will be a paradigm that is happening in a competitive global space, which calls for us to be innovative, both at policy levels and operational levels. Because if we are not innovative in what we do, we will continuously complain about the problems of yesteryears. And these problems, even after the Sustainable Development Goal years, which we are just 12 years away. 2030 is just 12 years away. So we need to be able to not only be innovative, but innovative to address policy gaps, innovative to bridge gaps and realize the foundational trust of ensuring that no one is truly left behind. But for us to do this, the first thing that we must be able to do is to ensure that policy, which is the biggest driver of change, can actually happen. And this we call policy harmonization and accelerated sustainable development. There is an African proverb which posits that a single bracelet does not jingle. What this means is that creating the sustainable industries to implement climate actions in the African continent today, to be able to drive inclusive transformational growth, to forestall conflicts and build lasting peace will require the inputs of various complementary sectors. Agriculture alone as the engine of development for the African continent will not be able to drive transformational change. Agriculture will need to work with energy, specifically clean energy, to ensure suitable power is available to power processing, to power preservation, so that the post-harvest losses of $500 million right here in Kenya can be reversed, so that the $48 billion that is lost as a result of inefficiency in the entire agro-value chain can be reversed. Agriculture will need to work with transport to ensure that what is produced can be efficiently linked to markets, to maximize profits. Agriculture will need to work with the trade department to ensure that markets can be secured for what is produced, and the list goes on and on. The resultant effect is that complementarity in synergistic actions will save time, will save costs, and at the same time also ensure effectiveness. As we're speaking today, this has proven to work in so many parts of the world, and have not only proven to ensure that enterprises are created, but at the same time also ensure that income and opportunities, especially for the youth, job opportunities to minimize socioeconomic inequalities that trigger conflicts are actually averted. Hence, policy coherence is a very crucial area in which you must be able to look into. But I'm glad to inform you that through the UN Environment Ecosystem-Based Adaptation for Food Security Assembly, what is fondly referred to as the BAFOSA, this paradigm of ensuring that countries can be able to foster synergistic abilities across sectors is happening. And through this ecosystem-based adaptation for food security assembly right here in Kenya, we're working with different ministries, especially the Ministry of Agriculture, which is hosting what is called the Interagency Policy Task Force. The Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation is working with the Ministry of Energy. The Ministry of Energy to be able to operationalize the climate-smart agricultural strategy. And this has been linked to the green economy strategy under the Ministry of Environment, the National Industrialization Policy under the Ministry of Industries, and provisions of the Finance Act of 2018, especially exemptions on inputs for manufacture of pesticides under the National Treasury, for joint actions in local manufacture and use of organic fertilizers and pesticides. And this is not only hastening the realization of 3 of the big 4, but at the same time providing an opportunity to build climate resilience and reverse degradation to set a firm foundation of lasting peace. How to sustain these collaborative actions, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, provide you an opportunity to ensure that this cross-complementary ministry is becoming a great entry point, can guide your diplomatic skills to see how we can be able to build a future that is good for each and everyone. The second proposition is market standardization. This provides a space for diplomacy, for climate action and accelerated socio-economic transformation. There is this proverb that goes that if a cockroach wants to rule over the chicken, then it must hire the fox as a bodyguard. Let me repeat that again. If the cockroach wants to rule over the chicken, then it must hire the fox as a bodyguard. While this may sound comical, in the context of our discussion today, this African proverb tells us one thing, that in today's market-driven economies, for sustainable industrialization to take root and foster climate actions while accelerating socio-economic transformation for inclusive wealth, actions have to master the market, a development that will require leveraging on robust market enablers. Yesterday, I shared with you that on the 21st of March, 2018, this year, in the capital of Rwanda, Kigali, African head of states came together and adopted the African Continental Free Trade Area, what is called AfTA. representing the most robust market enabler we have in modern times, which is set to consolidate a market of 1.2 billion citizens with a GDP over 3.4 trillion US dollars. And Kenya has already gone ahead to ratify this instrument. This is important, but what needs to be done, and this question must be answered by each and every one of us, is how can this become a market pull factor to drive sustainable industrialization for inclusive wealth creation, and how can this be urgently done? But this is a priority for you young diplomats today, diplomats like yourself, to take this head on. But what is already happening is that what you produce is not enough. How you produce it and how you connect to market, this must happen within a continuum. Because what has been happening is that in as much as production in the continent happens, there are post-harvest losses, connection to markets, and even access to input. These disjointed approaches sometimes need to happen within a continuum. Already the UN environment through Barbarossa is moving to solidify this paradigm, which is supporting countries to be able to ensure that they establish a market quality standard to regularize processes and tap into the 150 billion agro market that the continent of Africa presents. The efficacy of these standards, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, is that it builds on already existing approved standards in countries by merging them into one consolidated standard rather than reinventing the wheel. The application of this standard will mean that it will create a market appeal amongst health and climate conscious consumers who are increasing globally. It will ensure that processed cassava produced from Kenya will fetch a market in all other African countries. It will fetch a market from a Nigerian supermarket with a peace of mind that the cassava is pure, with a peace of mind that this cassava is natural, with a peace of mind that this cassava is non-chemicalized cassava, and that it will not compromise the consumer's health. It will be bought with a peace of mind that is met the highest quality approvals, and that how it was produced, ecosystems were not destroyed while producing this, and that no emissions were emitted in the process of processing as well as marketing. The same vigor will apply to cassava produced from Uganda or from South Africa or from Sierra Leone, Togo, and the list goes on. These compliance standards provide you with the opportunity to harness and tap into this 150 billion US dollars market that is currently being untapped today. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the fourth proposition is innovative financing. As we're speaking today, the changing climate, as I said yesterday and today, is no longer an abstract issue. We are at a time where the temperatures in the globe are already at 1.1 degrees. But dangerous temperature in which the world has worked hard to curtail is 1.5 degrees. That means we are 0.4 degrees to 1.5 degrees. And if we were to reach 1.5 degrees and hit 2 degrees, the African continent today will need 50 billion US dollars each and every year to be able to build climate resilience. But as we're speaking, with already changing climate, the continent needs 15 billion US dollars every year. But what comes to the continent every year is just about 1 to 2 billion US dollars. That means that the continent must look at innovative approaches to be able to leverage on what they have to build resilience. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the Ghanaian proverb that goes that if 10 cents doesn't go out, if 10 cents does not go out, it does not bring in $1,000. And this sums up the principle of an innovative approach that must be able to be tapped into. It is the principle behind risk-sharing facilities that Africa should urgently embrace to finance sustainable agro-industrialization as a thrust of climate action. It is the only way that we can be able to reverse the ecological degradation. It is the only way that we can be able to create inclusive wealth and lift those from the bottom of the pyramid to the top and forestall conflicts and achieve the ideals of diplomacy, which will be the multiplier effect that we truly need today, where financing not only applies to achieving an environmental and social benefit, but at the same time demonstrate tangible economic financial dividends through the framework of a Barbarossa, which the UN environment is fostering and helping countries to be able to drive these. This has been done by leveraging on the principle of cooperatives and the risk-sharing diversification that cooperatives provide, cooperatives and SACCOs. And what is happening is that cooperatives that already have shareholders can be engaged in leveraging on clean energy, developing loan packages that can actually be sold to the shareholders who could add value to what they produce. Right here in Kenya, there is the e-farmers cooperative, which is already working through the framework of the BAPOSA to engage actors and engage young people to provide them with the necessary financial opportunities to engage in the entire agro value chain in a way never ever seen before. So what I urge you, young diplomats, that this provides you an opportunity to plug into. As young diplomats, you could be able to complement your efforts so that you can drive diplomacy in ways never ever seen before and address issues of food insecurity and bring to the fore innovative aspects in policy and also in financing. The last proposition is enhancing market and supply-driven efficiencies to achieve diplomacy for climate action through harnessing information communication technology. Africa, as we speak today, is the world's fastest growing information communication technology market. As we speak here today, 600 to 1 billion US dollars in venture capital investment is projected for this very year, 2018, to be able to come to this continent of Africa. This is quite a big significant, this is a significant amount. But even more so, it's how we can be able to leverage to drive this paradigm of diplomacy that we are discussing here today, utilizing information communication technology. I believe that every one of you seated here today have an internet-enabled mobile phone. Yes, I believe you do. That is an opportunity that you're holding in your hand, leveraging on your mobile phone to facilitate a low-carbon pathway, a low-carbon footprint interactions among various supply chains along the nature-based driven agriculture, clean energy, could be able not just to create the needed jobs, but at the same time put you in a $1 trillion US agro economy value chain. But how your diplomacy skills can be utilized to be able to drive these is what we must be able to discuss, because the information communication technology investments in Kenya and across Africa to drive this sustainable agro-industrialization will not only forestall the root causes of conflicts, but at the same time achieve lasting peace like never seen before. These examples of utilizing information communication technology is already happening right here in Kenya. Kenya, M-Pesa started here in Kenya. That is a revolution in financial sector, combining information communication technology with finance. But across other countries, they're moving beyond just utilizing information communication technology for finance, but using this within the entire agro continuum, where how you produce without destroying the environment, adding value without adding to emissions, but using clean energy, and at the same time connecting to markets without using paper, but reducing the carbon footprint by using information communication technology. Youth in Cameroon have developed an application called AfroShop, and what they're doing is that they're utilizing this, and this falls within the BAPOSA framework, which they have actually engaged 500 women to link them to markets, and through this collaboration, they have incentivized 10 youth groups to be engaged in information communication technology. And these, they have created jobs for themselves and at the same time also help expand the entire agro value chain. BAPOSA provides a viable virtual space by which nearly 1 billion worth of ICT investments in Africa can be leveraged. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, as young diplomats, I urge you to be able to tap into these opportunities. The opportunities are enormous, but sometimes we focus on the nitty-gritty of little things that don't matter and forget the broader, bigger picture of opportunities that are seated just in front of us. Distinguished young diplomats, complement your efforts today to actualize the essence of diplomacy for climate action. Yes, climate change is inflicting pain, but it's also providing a window of opportunity. It's a window of opportunity that can help drive this accelerated socioeconomic transformation to benefit each and everyone and ensure lasting peace in the world. As you plug into this, I wish to remind you of an amusing yet enlightening African proverb that cross a river in a crowd and the crocodile won't eat you. This African proverb tells us this, that while the task ahead might not be easy, we must be able to leverage on what we have, which is us, our skills and our talents, and ensure that we do so to leverage on the opportunities that are inherent in the challenges that we see each and every day. And these we can be able to do within the existing frameworks that are in our midst today. If you take BAPOSA, for example, which is a citizens' assembly, an implementation framework that brings each and everyone together. And what matters here is that everyone's skills matter, talent matters. It is your talent and skill that matter, regardless of where you come from and regardless of who you know. A coalition of the willing of people ready and motivated to act not by the challenges, but inspired by the opportunities that are inherent in these challenges. The premise of Ebafosa is actually erected on selflessness, not selfishness. We must be able to move forward acting on collectivism rather than individualism. What should drive us forward should be hopefulness, not hopelessness. And how we can be able to move forward acting individually has not helped that much. But collectively is the engine that can be able, it is the DNA that will be able to make sure that we leave no one behind. But coming together through this framework, what is more important is that it is not who you know, but it is what you can bring on board. And these are the essence of what we call innovative volunteerism. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, with innovative volunteerism, what counts is not who knows who, but it is your passion. It is your commitment. Money cannot buy passion. Money cannot buy the dedication. Money cannot buy commitment. But these are ingredients that are inherent in each and every one of us today. But sometimes we go out there asking for them. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, innovative volunteerism is not blind optimism. It is already happening across the African continent today, and as individual citizens and young diplomats seated here today, youth like yourselves can be able to leverage on what you have, your skills, your ongoing initiative, regardless of whether you're a student or not. You can be able to leverage on what you have, your talents, to be able to drive transformational change for people and planet. And this is already happening from the coastlines of Benin, of Nigeria, of Cote d'Ivoire, of Gambia, of Togo, of Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone in West Africa, to the savannas of Cameroon, the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa, and to the highlands of Kenya, where we're having this discussion today, and to the Matoke Hills of Uganda, to the savannas of Zimbabwe, of Zambia, of Malawi, of Mozambique. The spirit of innovative volunteerism is visible to all, and is generating waves of progress and transforming the narrative that we can be able to move forward as a collective force, not as individuals. It's a narrative where youth like yourself are taking leadership. They're taking leadership in operationalizing and building on what is already there, rather than spending time and complaining. And as a result of this, youth are writing their own stories. It's stories like that of Cyrus Mbugua Kimani right here in Kenya. Cyrus Mbugua Kimani is a young electrical engineer who signed up as an innovative volunteerism volunteer within the Ebafosa framework. And what he did was he did not only end by registering. By registering, he did not stop there. What he did is that he put his internet researching skills into use, and used his internet bundles to be able to look at the potential enterprises that are existing within the clean energy, power, agro value addition industry. It did not take long for him to come up with an idea, which he sent that called irrigation as a service. And this irrigation as a service, where he's working with clean energy actors and farmers cooperatives, he sources irrigation equipment and leases this to farmers cooperatives, and in the process, he gets his cut for bridging the supply chain gap. This is innovative volunteerism in action, being practiced by one of you. Stories like that of Raymond Kayugizi, with a few of his classmates at the University of Makerere, have come together and using the information communication skill, have developed Ebafosa Uganda. And as a result of this, they will be graduating not just with already an iconic idea that they've already put into use, but this is going to put them in a market of $1 trillion US. This is innovative volunteerism in action. It's not talk. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you for free that the sky is the limit for you. You have everything it takes to achieve everything. But what you need is to start, to be committed, to be passionate, to be dedicated, to be determined, because those are the true ingredients that can be able to ensure that you reach anywhere you want to go. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, as the African proverb goes, if you think you are too small to make a difference, then you haven't spent the night with a mosquito. If we don't despise ourselves, our collective actions will move mountains, and today you have the opportunity, this discussion here today is providing you with that opportunity to leverage on what you have. You have that opportunity to make a difference now and to the future, because you are the leaders of today, not just the leaders of tomorrow and the future leaders. This is what we must be able to do. This is what we must be able to do, because in the words of Kwame Nkrumah on the 12th of June 1965, which he met to the National Assembly, he said, "The task ahead is great indeed, but heavy is the responsibility. And yet it is a noble and glorious challenge. But it's a challenge that calls for each and every one of us. It's a challenge that calls for us to dream. It gives us the courage to dream. It's a challenge that calls for a courage to envision, a courage to re-envision, and a courage to work, a courage to achieve the best that we can, because by crawling, as you can see on that image, a child learns to stand. By crawling, a child learns to stand. Contained in this simple African proverb is the wisdom that should guide us as we move forward, to harness the best in us, so that we can be able to harness what we have to address the shared imperative of food insecurity, to ensure that jobs for our youth and expanded economies with climate change combated can actually be achieved. This is the underlying premise that should energize each and every one of us today. This is the underlying premise that should energize all of us to establish the urgently needed paradigm of diplomacy for accelerated socio-economic transformation and climate action for lasting peace in Africa and the entire world. This is how we can truly reshape the development of the African continent and ensure that no one is left behind. We must therefore usher ourselves to action. If there is a mother somewhere who buries a kid because that kid doesn't have the nutritious food to live beyond the age of 5, even if it is not your mother, that should matter to us. And if it matters to us, then we must be able to ensure that we drive transformational change by leveraging on what we have, our skills, our talents, and that we do something that is not just to benefit us, but benefit others, because collectively we are stronger. If there is an unemployed youth, like yesterday, a boat was being shown in the Mediterranean with almost 600 youth in it, stranded or being buried under the Mediterranean Sea. That should matter to us. And if it matters to us, we must be able to do something to create the opportunities right here in the African soil. If there is someone who goes to bed energy impoverished without having the clean energy to be able to study and go to school, to chart a better life, that should matter to us. And if it matters to us, we must usher ourselves to action. By ushering ourselves to action, we can ensure that the world will never experience the fear of want or need. But the road ahead will not be easy. But let us always be reminded by this African proverb, as you can see on that screen, that even the biggest cock that crews the largest was once just an egg. Thank you.